here, and we'd just like to welcome Whitney. Thank you so much for being here, and go ahead.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great. I want to make sure, I'm Whitney, by the way, I'll introduce myself here in a second. But in general, for today, we're talking about turning any new idea that you have into a venture by utilizing MVP or other testing and validating strategies. We'll go really high level, but we can really go deep wherever you see fit. Like, I really want to make sure this talk is as beneficial to you as possible. So, in that, to that point, feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions, and then we'll also save some time at the end as well for questions. So you can talk about your unique situations. If there's something that you've been toying with, thinking about. I love when people are close to becoming founders, and I know myself before I started the business, it took me a while to say it out loud that I was a founder and that I was an entrepreneur. But you get over the hump as soon as you say it and as soon as you start going. So, to that point, I'll give you a quick introduction just so you're not talking, hearing from a complete stranger. So I'm Whitney, I'm the founder and CEO of Daybird. I'll talk a little bit about Daybird here in a second because I'm going to use it as an example of how we set up our MVP. But before that, I spent about 12 years of experience in consumer. So I was at Red Bull for many years, held jobs locally up to nationally as an athlete manager for them. I spent time in technology, helping them build their new brand agency. They're a skincare startup out of San Francisco. I was at 1-800 Contacts building startups, and at Wilson Ventures, which is a venture capital fund in the consumer space. So always been a consumer, love building at the earliest days, love products that are tangible and that you can feel, but some of this conversation will also be about if you're building in SaaS or consumer tech or otherwise, so we'll definitely try to tailor it to whatever you need. I am a UT alum, so I did my undergrad here a long time ago, much before this beautiful space was created, and I also have my MBA from Chicago. So actually, before we do that, I wanted to ask a couple questions if you guys can entertain me. Who here is building something or thinking about building something? Okay, cool. And what stages are we in? Are we in idea stage? Anyone? Customer discovery? Are we MVP yet? Okay, close. Okay. Beta yet or launched? Okay, cool. Okay, and then what categories and industries? Consumer products? Do we have companies?
Indirect consumer products.
Yeah, okay. Consumer tech? Safety, okay. Safety tech, okay. B2C or B2B?
No.
Okay. Any SaaS? Okay. Hardware? B2B or B2B2C? No? Okay. Anything else? Any other categories or industries you guys want to talk about? Nothing? What other, for the non-founders in the room, what areas are you guys looking to work in, industry-wise? Feel free to shout it out, don't be shy. Anything? Fashion, okay. Music, okay.
Beauty.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Consulting, okay. Consulting, you have to be a jack of all trades for that, yeah, strategy. Sustainability, okay. Any specific sustainability initiatives or industries, or do you want to be sustainability in-house or?
Something like that. Something like encouraging more composting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. You can build a startup that gets consumer because the consumer behavior with it. That's a huge problem with us. Okay. Any others? No. Okay. That was a lot. So we'll talk. I'll try to work it in, but stop me and let's talk about unique situations as they come up or ask me questions about it. And then who here kind of has knowledge about what an MVP is? Some? Okay. Anyone never heard the term, I thought it was most valuable player? Cool. Okay, cool. It is also most valuable player, right? Yeah, completely. Cool. Hi, welcome. All right, cool. So I'm going to do this clicker is backwards from what I thought it would be. Very quick about what I'm building because I'm going to use that as an example, but talk through some other scenarios as well. So Daybird is an anti-beauty club. We essentially are breaking up with beauty standards and redefining them on our own terms, and we do that by creating functional makeup that has active skincare ingredients for essentially a one-step morning routine. you'll kind of get the sense of that as I walk you through kind of our entire customer discovery MVP beta process. But this is who we are today. And so we launched less than a year ago, this past May. We've been featured everywhere from Well and Good, The Skim, Forbes, Oprah, Daily. The list kind of goes on, which is really amazing. Over 200 mentions on social and in press. We have, TikTok videos that have gone over 1 million views. And we're about to launch on urbanoutfitters.com and as well as Kourtney Kardashian's. So it's exciting to be here today, but it wouldn't have happened without all of the process and the customer discovery and research that went into starting from the early days. So I won't talk a ton about exactly what we're doing, only in the context of how we potentially set up your MVP. I want to get out of the way and talk about things that are useful for you. But just so you know, from a starting perspective, where this started was I come across vitamin D serum on my shelf. This was mid-pandemic. It was most of the way full, and it was expired, and I thought to myself, like, this can't be shot if I never put it on my skin. Why do I have a product that I spend so much money on and I don't put it on my skin? And this led me to talking to a bunch of people, which really led me to the customer discovery phase, realizing that I had a product that wasn't working for me. And so I say that because I think, when you're starting a new idea, sometimes you can get attached to potential solutions. What you really want to focus on is that problem that your customer is having, test and validate from there, and just be really loose with the solution until you've been able to really learn through the MVP whether that idea is validated. So this is what we did. We interviewed people one-on-one for an hour, 50 times, 50 different individuals that we did not know. We surveyed over 1,200 people for our discovery phase. We did an MVP and a beta, which I'll get into. And then by the time we launched, we had 4,000 customers on our wait list. So for anyone that's doing customer discovery, for us it starts with, it starts with a hypothesis or an idea of where the industry is sitting from your customer research, right? So for us, that was that, we're told by the industry after interviewing all these people that they're told to wear more, spend more money, add more steps in order to kind of fit these unrealistic and idealistic beauty standards, right? And so we found that was really emotionally taxing for customers, that they carried a lot of mental load and lived rent-free in their heads, and that they didn't use 90% of the products that they purchased on their shelves. So that was really the impetus for us to go and validate, okay, could we provide a solution that helped with this? So again, talked to a bunch of people, got a bunch of quotes, understood qualitatively and quantitatively what their issues were. So from a quantitative standpoint, from the survey, what their goals were, what the value props they were looking for, what their demographics, psychographics looked like, et cetera. And then of course, qualitatively, really understanding those rich insights of how they thought about their relationship with beauty. So, and then we also got a ton of photos of their shelves and found out that they weren't using these products. So a lot of waste too, which is a factor for sure in the beauty industry. And then we built out a customer profile, really getting deep on exactly who she is, how much she spends, what value props matter to her, what her routine looks like, where she sits in the market, etc. And that's what really helped us to develop, okay, what is the solution that we think or are going to try and prove out to see if it fits with the customer, right? And so for us, that was 1-step morning routine, taking all five of their potential skincare and makeup steps and putting it into one, so that way they could use their time to spend elsewhere, whether that's doing something that makes them happy, going for walks, spending time with family, etc. And so then that's what really led to MVP. So I'll pause there and see if anyone has any thoughts or questions about the customer discovery phase and how to structure that. I'll talk about some tools later, but of course for ours, we literally had people reach out to people who we didn't know and say, friends of friends, will you jump on Zoom with me for 30 minutes to an hour? We sent out a Qualtrics survey. We actually for folks that are students, utilizing your free student resources, whether that's Qualtrics or otherwise, in order to have that access to send surveys. And then we also, for the survey, in order to get the level of responses that we needed without going to, because you never want to go to immediate friends and family, there's a lot of bias there. In order to extend that further, we looked at Facebook community groups, Slack community groups, etc., in order to get it to broader communities that fit that target customer profile in order to learn from them. So those are some of the ways that we we're able to expand on the customer discovery. Does anyone have any questions on customer discovery? Okay, cool. Yes?
How long did that take?
Let's see, that only took, well, with interviews, I remember the first interview I did at this point was like in August. Like I had just found out vitamin C serum. I was like, someone talk to me, right? We sent out the survey in October and we like wrapped it up soon after receiving that survey. So a few months, about 3 to 4 months for customer discovery. Yeah. All right, so MVP, for those that were thinking most valuable pair, it is minimum viable product. So it's meant to be the essential features only, so that way you can test and validate the market will react to your product, service, or solution. Obviously, there's a lot of literature that's written on MVP. A lot of people are really strict with it. I would say focus on the things that help you answer your questions, the questions that you need to answer. Obviously, try to remove bias, and again, be loose with the solution, so that way you can truly learn. The last thing you want to do is just receive confirmation. It was safety perspective, right? It was only metros, right? Like very dense populated metros. You could select those locations. One of the things you can also do is include custom audiences. So say your survey went out to 1,500 people and you wanted to do a lookalike off of them, 1% lookalike. It'll show to 1% of people that look like those people, which is always really helpful. Meta loves that. And then you can also even do really detailed targeting. At first I was like, I'm going to put an athletic brewing because that's a non-out beer that people love. No, it didn't have it. Sometimes it will. Sometimes they'll have like other brands. But you can just get really deep with various interests, activities, behaviors, other demographics like household income, or if they're a parent, which I put in here, and then they're 18 to 20-year-old. So I wasn't really paying attention clearly with my target audience. But yeah, it's fairly simple to set up. It may feel daunting at first if you've never been in Meta before, but I promise it's going to be the easiest tool to test and learn fast from. Any questions on Shopify or Meta? Cool. I would say to yourself, don't try and set up your ad account right before running your MVP. It will take a little bit to get set up just on the Meta side, and ads do take about 24 hours to actually get approved, so make sure you get to that time frame. Devices is another category, so it's like, and other things. Cool. If you're doing something like tech or SaaS, here is a list of various products. If you're interested, feel free to snap a photo. That you can use. I mean, I use Figma quite a lot for prototyping in the consumer space. Bubble is a great product. I've used that before. If you're looking for no-code solutions in order to prototype or host an MVP. I would say if you are building in the tech or SaaS space, your approach might look a little bit different, but what you're really trying to do is still solve, just think about those questions that you're solving for from a prototype perspective. It can be very manual, right? Like, you don't need to have the product, the software actually doing your service when you're in the MVP stage. What you're trying to prove out is that the customer wants the service, right? So you could be doing all of the manual stuff on the back end because, again, you don't want to go build out the big software and then find out you need to pivot 180 degrees for your customer's needs, right? So you can be doing that all manual. It's not software doing it, it's you, just to get through the MVP to understand, okay, the customer, this meets their needs, this solves for their problem. And then this is just like a handy chart to think about. It's not just about being essential function, like try to get a nice little slice of it, have some design in there that represents your brand, have some UX in there, make sure it's usable and reliable, right? Because you don't want to introduce factors that are going to potentially disrupt whether or not you're actually validating your idea. So trying to get a nice little slice all the way throughout versus just on the functional end. Any questions about, I want to touch on beta, your beta cohort a bit. But before I do, I wanted to check to see. Yeah?
Yeah, when do you actually say that it is an MVP? Because you said an MVP answers those questions. So what's the past tense versus, like, when you launch it, do you say you are in MVP? Or when you finish and you have answered those questions, are you then in the MVPs?
No, I would say you're in the MVP when you're going through it,
And
and
you're trying.
you ran an MVP once you have the learnings. So the MVP phase is while you're going through having a minimum viable product to launch, it's out there, you're testing against it. Once you have the learnings, your MVP is done, you're moving forward. Does that help? Does that answer it? In the beta phase, for us, we shipped product to a bunch of diverse customers all across, like, whether it was like the shade spectrum, skin concerns, geographically, age, ethnicity, everything diverse is what we're really looking for, is trying to get as much diverse answers as possible and get as much UX and product feedback. So for our beta, it was a customer cohort of 55 customers, and really just understanding them. So that is the way to run a beta. I won't go into beta too much unless you guys want to, just since we're talking MVP. And getting learnings from them, right? So we sent quantitative surveys weekly, we had qualitative questions in there as well, we talked to them, etc. Really understanding how do they grid, is it working for them, our initial first iteration of the product, and then of course their willingness to pay. Tools for beta cohort, Shopify, Airtable, Typeform, Figma, TestFlight if you're building an app. And then really just optimizing for your goals and resources. Again, what's free to use if you are needing a low-cost solution? What's no to low code if you are not a technical co-founder? What's available to use for free as a student? Again, thinking about it being manual as needed to test, right? Don't overwork something. Don't spend 6 months building something and then to do an MVP on it and then realize it needs to go completely redone and get you those answers quickly. If you need more, are 2 books that I recommend on this. So, Lean Product Playbook, as well as Discipline Entrepreneurship. But honestly, the best way to start is just to start. So, I want to make sure we have time for questions. So, or we can talk about any unique scenarios that you guys have. So that's it in terms of me talking at you. Cool?
How
Yeah.
did you come up with your name?
Name? Yeah, it took a while. So as I mentioned, we were reset before, right? Again, we're just learning phase, going as quickly as possible, right? And we were reset because we were thinking like reset your routine. That was like the initial, right, value prop that we were solving for. So when it came to Daybird, well, first of all, as a consumer product in the skincare space, one, we were trying to get a domain, but 2, we we're also trying to ensure that we would be able to trademark it in class 3, which is the class that we are for the US Patent and Trademark Office. And so that's very hard in skincare and non-medicated skincare. And so we had hundreds of names. I lost sleep a few nights because it was really important to me. One thing I always like to remind myself of that a lot of people in the brand space will tell you is that the name does not matter as long as the brand really represents, and the visual identity really represents the whole package of what your brand is offering. A lot of people will tend to forget the name or just attach the name to that brand and then move forward from there and be attached to the brand from that way. But when it came to Daybird, we wanted something that was easy to say. People were messing with reset all the time. They're saying reset or all different versions, or they misspell it when they try to email us, etc. So one, we knew we wanted something that we could say, have domain for, have trademark for. But then at that point, it was just representing our brand, and how we came to our mission was showing up for your day just as you are, instead of having to look and feel a certain way that the beauty industry tells you to. Like, you have to wear makeup to go look professional or to go feel confident. We kind of wanted to strip that away and help you show up just as you are. And so that's kind of where Daybird came from, right? It's just that feeling of being able to show up for your day. But we went through hundreds of names. I had a long, long list. I'm just gonna toss them off. Yeah?
I guess other than like the inside on the changing your name, things like that, what were some of the other things that you learned like after the MVP phase that you implemented?
Yeah, no, great question. So a lot around UX. So we really understood from them what were friction points, what mattered to them, what honestly didn't that we thought may have mattered. Heat mapping is a great, Hotjar is a great heat mapping tool. Definitely have that going whenever you're running your MVP and your site up. they do like, I think you can get up to like three hot jars, which is like heat maps, for free, up to like 1,000 users or something like that. You can also watch people record screens, which is really nice as you're in the learning phase. But we learned a lot, like our skin quiz. We realized people want enough questions that it makes them feel like this is giving them a strong output, but not so they need some level of questions, but not so many that they fall off, right? We also learned that even if we got their shade correct, they were still untrusting of shade matching. So we needed to further show them and help them and guide them through that UX process to get them to purchase, regardless of whether or not we already knew their shade or not, just to help them really feel that trust with the shade matching process. From a formulation perspective, we understood, okay, what was working, what wasn't in terms of finish, ingredients, factors that mattered, like cruelty-free, reef-safe, or otherwise, that sort of thing. From a marketing perspective, just like which of the messaging kind of worked for us, right? So is it that one-step routine, or is it calling out those active ingredients, right? Like what works and for which customers, and that's a continuous learning, to be honest. I would say those are kind of the key things we were able to learn specifically from the MVP, just given what we were able to stand up for the MVP ahead of launch. And then of course, yeah, we're still testing and learning every single day, so. Other questions, yeah?
How much expertise do you need for the industry?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I personally don't think you need, like, it really depends on how comfortable you are with going and doing it, in my opinion. I had been in Curology, but I'd been with them for a short stint, so I understood some expertise, but my co-founder was a chemical engineer, like, so she understood like all of the chemistry behind formulation, but we weren't beauty experts, right? Like we hadn't been in the industry a long time. I would say that was to our advantage because we're building an anti-beauty club. We're literally trying to dismantle everything the beauty industry says. And every single time we talk to a beauty executive that, you know, advises us, they all say, oh, you guys should raise AOV out the roof. Like you should be putting a bunch of things on people's shelves, and we're like, that is antithematic to exactly what we're solving for customers, right? And so there is some of that, you know, not being in the industry that helps you kind of see some other areas on where you can disrupt. So I think that can be really helpful. I think there needs to just be an extreme curiosity, and then of course understanding and absorbing and learning as much as you can. So if you don't have that industry expertise, definitely still having, whether it's tangential industry expertise, such as like in another similar industry. So I was, for example, in food and bev, so I really understood consumer products, or if I had experience in the D2C capacity, or potentially more on the manufacturing end of the industry, something like that. But as well, just like the willingness to absorb. Like I spoke to anyone who would talk to me from the industry. How do you go manufacture? You know, what's the process like? How can I ensure that like when I go step in and ask like a supplier or contract manufacturer to work with me that I can be successful, right? Really doing that was helpful in really getting started. And then, like I said, our third co-founder, we joke is Google, because some of the time you can really, if you're willing to absorb, you can find a lot about how to work things. Yeah.
How did you get your press dimensions?
Oh, yeah. So we have an affiliate agency that we work with and a PR freelancer that we work with. So they, that process was really about finding the right partner for us. We're really happy with them. They're all female team, and they really understand our brand, which is important to us as well, given that we're like an anti-beauty brand. And so we just really enjoy the relationship, and I think that's why it tends to work for us, is because they really understand it.
At what stage did you start them?
We actually, so we launched last May. That was more of a soft launch. We were really just trying to learn as much from our customers, earliest customers as possible. So early customers in the door, not marketing turned on. We turned on marketing in fall. So around October, we started working with them. And most of those mentions came like November to now. Yeah?
Once you launch your Shopify or
Mhm.
website,
Yeah.
or anything in general, what do you do, or do you have any recommendations on how a business should protect itself from like a legal standpoint?
Mm.
When there's like so many minuscule things
Yeah.
that as like a
Yes. Great question. Okay, so if you're a consumer product, Shopify does have templates for your privacy policy and terms of use. You definitely want to put those up, right? They'll have those templates. You can throw those pages in the footer. Definitely have that up. The other thing is, again, MVP is short run thing, right? Run it, turn it off, right? If you're thinking about things like you want to be considerate of accessibility, we actually have a paid accessibility app on our site. But if you're just building an MVP and you want to be considerate of those legal implications, just make sure everything's high contrast, right? Readability, just ensure that it's a good font size. Usually if you're taking a template from Shopify, like one of those themes, they're most likely already considering that in the theme. So if you're not, really changing that up too much, then you should be good to go, right? Like as long as your font colors and your background colors are high contrast, and as long as you're not reducing font size, you should be good on that front. Any other like thoughts that came up for you from a legal implication standpoint?
photos
Mm.
or text, copyright.
Yeah, so we wrote all our own copy. And then from a photo perspective, definitely try to get licensed photography, right? So Shutterstock, I believe you can get like 10 free images to start, right? So something like that where you can get some licensed photography for sure. Because you want to make sure you have the license rights to it. Or, taking it yourself if that's something that you're able to do. Always a good thing too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Or anyone have any ideas they're burning to create an MVP for that you want to workshop? Cool. Thank you. That is my email. Feel free to message me. I'm also on LinkedIn. I am completely available to chat about anything. So don't hesitate.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah.
so much to you, Whitney, and thank you